Hello and welcome to NOGRAD's Anime Awards of 2022. Last year I told myself that I'd upload a video every month and didn't do shit, so at the very least I had to do something for 2022. For 2021 I did a typical top 10 countdown format, which was fun to write, but this year I wanted to do something a little different. This year I'll be giving out awards for winners across multiple categories leading up to Anime of the Year. This video was heavily inspired by Jack from Under the Scope's UTS Anime Awards series, which sadly came to an end last year. He's one of my favorite AniTubers, and his Anime Award series were easily the best Anime of the Year content out there. So to help cope with that fact, I decided to make my own derivative version. Here's how it'll work. There are a total of 14 categories this year. I'll try to spend some time on each nominee and explain my reasoning and thoughts behind my picks for each category. This will eventually build up into my top 5 ranking, leading to Anime of the Year. I'll leave timestamps for each category if you want to skip around. For an anime to qualify, I must have at least partially watched it, and it had to have aired in 2022. Any anime I left out, I probably didn't watch. This channel of mine is a hobby first and foremost, so I have limited time to not only consume anime, but to create content surrounding it. But with that being said, let's begin the very first NOGRAD Anime Awards. And what better category is there to start with other than opening sequence of the year? Best opening of the year was extremely difficult to decide. Mob Psycho and Love is War came out with more bangers, remaining true to the style of their respective shows, while Attack on Titan broke all expectations with The Rumbling. But if I were to give the award for best OP to the catchiest song, then it would hands down go to Ya Boy Kong Me. That shit is like crack. And Vondi's OP on Ranking of Kings Core 2 was my most listened to song of 2022. But there can only be one OP to rule them all. And that, of course, goes to Chainsaw Man's Kickback. Filled with pop culture references, paying homage to the insane genius and film fanatic Tatsuki Fujimoto, and imbued with absolute chaos, Kickback is everything an OP should be. From the chaotic fun visuals to the catchy song, it is a masterclass in anime openings, and it's for these reasons that Chainsaw Man's Kickback takes my pick for best opening sequence of the year. While there were certainly less EDs that caught my attention this year, there were 3 that cut it close for best ending sequence. First off, we have Spy Family's Comedy by Jan Hoshino. It's an adorable and imaginative ending paired with an equally wholesome and serotonin boosting song. The most emotional and meaningful ED has to be Mythenroid's Endless Embrace for Made in Abyss Season 2. Every time the end credits rolled, I was taken aback by the beauty of the song. It may not have the most exciting or over-the-top visuals, but more often than not, I was on the verge of tears by the time the ED would play. The award for Best Ending Sequence goes to Chainsaw Man's Ending 3 200 million centimeter long blade by Maximum the Hormone. I know, it might be a boring or typical and expected answer, but Chainsaw Man absolutely nailed both OP and ED this year. This ED was so good that they had to make it an insert song, which was cool the first time and not that cool the second, but Chainsaw Man's ED3 is a heavy hitter. Deep, grumbling bass and demonic cult-like vocals build with intensity as they burst into full-on breakcore, then into J-rock. Maximum the Hormone brings their signature unconventional uniqueness to Chainsaw Man's ED, and it works insanely well. The ending also features some of the sickest visuals, bringing Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man manga covers to life with the crazy color palette ripped straight from the volumes. It's dark, it's gritty, it's chaotic, and it's everything an ED should be if it wants to be called the best ending sequence of the year. While we're still on the topic of music, why don't we take a look at the best OSTs of the year? There was no shortage of good OSTs. Cyberpunk Edgerunners had everybody listening to I Really Want to Stay at Your House, with even more standout insert songs across multiple genres, giving music video vibes at just about every step of the way to the end. And I seriously had forgotten how amazing the soundtrack for Demon Slayer was until I came back to the series with the Entertainment District arc. Its grandiose blaring horns and banging drums take your breath away, giving off the best boss fight music you'll hear and never fails to get you absolutely hyped. Then there's Kensuke Yoshio's Chainsaw Man, perfectly matching the style of the series and bringing his signature experimental sound, incorporating soft pianos like you would find in his work in a silent voice, to bursting out into something resembling breakcore in an instant. It works surprisingly well, and my only nitpick I have to give is that there just isn't enough of his work in the show. The ending song heard on episode 3, as I stated before, turned into an insert song, which I felt took away from Kensuke's work, robbing him of some music real estate, for lack of better words. Maybe it's the fault of shonen as a genre for not allowing more of the music to shine through. So what is my pick for best OST? You guessed it, it's Kevin Pakin's work on Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun. The overall production of the series was fantastic as usual, and the same can be said about Kevin Pakin's work on Made in Abyss. Tracks like Made in Abyss and Hanezebe Karadina return to Golden City, luring us back into Made in Abyss. An astonishing 32 new tracks were made for Golden City, utilizing new instruments and sounds we've never heard in the series up until this point, complementing its new settings and characters, all the while still keeping the spirit of Made in Abyss. The track Old Stories stands out to me the most. It's a 7-minute long song which utilizes all of Kevin's best qualities, incorporating beautiful vocals, soft pianos, shimmering strings, and a deep electronic bass. The track powerfully gives you that feeling of yearning, longing, and homesickness. It's one of the most beautiful tracks I've ever heard, and the entirety of Made in Abyss's OST is amazing. There were plenty of fantastic soundtracks 2022 had to offer, but in the end, it really was no contest. Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun easily takes the award for Best Original Soundtrack of the Year. The award for Best Anime Protagonist of the Year goes to Shigeo Kageyama, better known as Mob. What makes Mob stand out from any other shonen protagonist is that he feels more human than anything. Despite possessing godlike abilities with seemingly no limit to them, Mob has always felt like someone you could relate with and even look up to. His willingness to give the benefit of the doubt and how he sees the best in others are things that we should take from him. He's always looking for ways to improve himself, and it's these characteristics he possesses that outshine his incredible psychic abilities. Mob Psycho 100 Season 3 feels like a test of his resolve and forces him to step up to the plate. The season highlights just how far his character has come. He's grown into a person he genuinely wants to be. Mob takes my spot for Best Protagonist of the Year. On the flip side, the award for Best Antagonist of the Year goes to Eren Yeager. His determination and drive to protect his loved ones and his home have always been at the forefront of his actions, but as the story progresses and he learns more about the world, his means of achieving his goals have become more morally gray. His transition from a young, naive kid all the way to a ruthless monster who will do anything to achieve his goal was the best thing they could have done to his character. It might have come off as a bit of a shock coming into the final season, but the seeds were always there, planted all the way in 2013. While main characters certainly impact their respective shows the most, some supporting characters have the ability to steal the show. And for me, that was Fapta of Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun. The embodiment of value, the princess of the hollows, Fapta stole the show. She's a bewildering and perplexing being who moves with such swiftness and grace. The hollows of the village love her, yet the very purpose of her existence is one that will lead to a path of pain and suffering. How her destiny is challenged in Golden City was one of the most heartbreaking things to watch, seeing this naive yet determined character get her entire worldview shattered once she's finally come to reach her goal. I can't say much more without going into spoiler territory, but Fapta is the highlight of Made in Abyss Season 2 and takes my spot for Best Supporting Character of the Year. Alright, enough with the baby rolls in anime. Let's tackle my picks for Best Boy and Best Girl of the Year. Best Boy would have gone to Mob if he didn't take the spot for Best Protagonist. Boji in Ranking of Kings Core 2 showed us the swordsmanship of a king, and Denji is a breath of fresh air shown in MC, but the award for Best Boy is a different kind of MC and lies in an entirely different kind of show. Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic was nobody's show but Miyuki Shirogane's. We get an episode dedicated to him learning how to rap and allows Hayasaka to finally be her true self and outwardly express her feelings for the first time to Kaguya. We get his origin story on how he fell in love with Kaguya and how he became president, and my man finally starts making moves. The finale of Ultra Romantic really shows off his pure genius and how hard he'll work to achieve anything no matter what it takes. Number 1 student and student council president at the prestigious Shuchin, Shirogane is the definition of a Sigma male and steals my spot for Best Boy of the Year. Alright, Best Girl goes to Bocchi. It was a tough decision picking out each and every character for those awards, and while we're still on the topic of characters, let's take a look behind the scenes and see the picks for the best voice acting performance. I'm not too familiar with the names in the voice acting industry, but I do know a damn good voice acting performance when I hear one. Tomori Kusunoki went as far as praying to a picture of Makima every day for the role and absolutely nailed her voice in Chainsaw Man. Her calm toned voice soothes the ears, but you can't help but feel just a little terrified at the same time. On the other end of the spectrum is Aoyama Yoshino's performance as Bocchi in Bocchi the Rock, delivering a constantly overthinking, overly anxious girl who will snap and freak outs at any given moment. This and her ability to break into a comedic song on her guitar makes her voice acting performance one of my favorites in anime of 2022. Misaki Kuno does an absolutely fantastic job of portraying this beautiful and enigmatic character, and really delivered some gut-wrenching, heavy-hitting lines during the climax of her character arc. While all 3 of these performances are great and more frequent throughout the runtime of their respective shows, the award for Best Voice Acting Performance of 2022 goes to Hiroshi Tsuchida's role as Grisha Jaeger in Attack on Titan The Final Season Part 2, despite only appearing in a single episode of the entire season. Hiroshi's performance as Grisha went from anxious to insanity to agony and hopelessness. Grisha's scene in that single episode alone was so emotionally raw and outstanding that I was completely floored at the voice acting in that single scene alone, so much so that it deserves the spot for Best Voice Acting Performance of the Year. Now, if you thought that was a hot take, then just wait until you hear this next one, because it's time for the award for Best Animation. In the case of Best Animation of the Year, the immediate shows that come to mind are Demon Slayer, Cyberpunk, Chainsaw Man, and Mob Psycho 100 Season 3. And while all of these shows have incredible animation, where each fall is in their consistency, I love Ufotofo's unbelievably flashy style with their heavy usage of impact frames and electrifying auras. But what about the parts that weren't big fights? Outside the season-long fight scene are weird shots of our main characters in CG or some 1-2 frames for comedic effect. Cyberpunk Edgerunners rings true to Studio Trigger's distinct style, but with lesser experienced staff comes with some inconsistencies, especially with their use of CG. And yes, I'm going to nitpick 3D CG for this award, and Mappa's Chainsaw Man is not exempt from this either. A lot of people were complaining about Chainsaw Man's use of CG, which I agree to an extent. It would be completely unreasonable to expect that amount of detail in a moving format that was hand-drawn. CG was the best way to go, and CG was really only used when needed. There were a lot of shots that were hand-drawn. But again, it's the few moments where the animation, whether it be CG or not, looks just a little bit jarring. Mappa's work on Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 2 were more consistent than the rest of the shows, however the scenes that were dialogue heavy felt stiff, as Mappa chose to instill an exuberant amount of detail and character expressions to remain true to the manga. And Studio Bones' Mob Psycho Season 3 animation was always outstanding, but broke its own limiter in a few episodes that made the extra frames also look a little bit weird. And I know, all of these shows save their motive powers for standout episodes and insane fight scenes, but for me, the award for Best Animation of the Year has to go to Cloverworks' Bocchi the Rock. While Bocchi the Rock may not have some of the highs of the likes of Demon Slayer, the bombastic chaoticness of Cyberpunk, or the incredible cinematography of Chainsaw Man, Bocchi the Rock has hands down the best overall animation as well as production. Everything about Bocchi the Rock looks so refined, and it's thanks to the use of really good CG, or at least I think so. Some of the shots in Bocchi the Rock look almost impossible to pull off hand-drawn. It hurt my head watching the show and trying to figure out whether it was or wasn't CG and how much of the show was actually hand-drawn. On top of this, the adaptation of the Bocchi the Rock manga itself is a sight to behold, delving into multiple mediums and styles of animation with only the utmost quality put throughout each episode, even though the source material is a 4-panel manga. So not only does the adaptation bring home the bread, but the sheer amount of creativity and character expression shown through Cloverworks' work are enough for me to declare Bocchi the Rock as winner of Best Animation of the Year. Now, if you shonen heads out there are a little bit salty about Bocchi the Sweep, then let's settle down a bit and take a look at the best fight scenes anime had to offer this year. While there were loads of action sequences throughout the year, I actually couldn't think of that many actual fights. Even if there weren't a large number of fights this year, the quality of them did not disappoint. The anime adaptation of Rooster Teeth's Ruby, Ruby Ice Queendom, showcased some jaw-dropping animation and well-choreographed action sequences, including Ruby's first fight scene in the first episode. Studio Shaft are just showing off when it comes off to Ruby Ice Queendom, letting us know just how good they can do action. That being said though, it's extremely jarring when the budget kicks in and it only happens in short bursts before cutting back to a noticeable downgrade in animation. Ranking of Kings Core 2's climactic fight scene with Bocchi gave us an epic Souls-like boss battle sequence in the last moments of the series. Wit Studio has always had a knack for scale and speed in their action sequences, and all of their work in Ranking of Kings have been nothing but absolutely incredible. Chainsaw Man's Aki vs. Katana was directed beautifully, instilling a sense of dread and urgency with the help of Kensuke Yoshio's music. Every movement has meaning to it where one wrong step could lead to instant death. As ridiculous as Chainsaw Man can be, the Aki vs. Katana fight feels real. How would a devil hunter compare to a devil of this caliber? But there can only be one winner for the best fight scene, and that of course goes to Demon Slayer Entertainment District arcs Tengen and Tenryou versus Gyutaro. The entire season was basically one drawn-out fight between the demons and the Demon Slayers, and the climax of the fight in episode 10 gave us a non-stop action with minimal monologues or cutaways that just never failed to get me hyped whenever I rewatched it. The animation, the soundtrack, the sound design, everything about this entire episode was insane and to be expected of Ufotable. I'd go as far as to say that this climax outdid Demon Slayer's own Mugen Train arc, which was a feature-length movie. I'm really not that big a fan of Demon Slayer, but I'll admit that the highs of Demon Slayer never failed to make me feel a certain way. Demon Slayer's episode 19, Rengoku vs. Akaza, and now Tengen vs. Gyutaro. At the end of the day, it's fun and gets the blood flowing through your veins. Pretty colors and animation go brrr, and it's my favorite fight of year. Now that we got our favorite fight scene out of the way, let's broaden our scope and take a look at the award for Best Single Episode. There were so many great episodes this year that I wish I could dive more deeply into, but the episode which had the most impact being a standalone episode, of course, goes to Cyberpunk Edgerunner's Girl on Fire. You know this episode. The minute it opens, you know something is coming, and the events that soon come to follow are depressing to say the least. What this episode portrays and how it goes about it is something that can only be pulled off in the medium of anime. To be able to deliver such an impactful episode when there were only allotted 10 and not even be the climax of the series is nothing short of impressive. And while we're still on the topic of Cyberpunk Edgerunners and still recovering from episode 6, the award for Best Anime Original goes to Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Edgerunners is one of my favorites of this year, but just grazed my top 5 and will not be making an appearance. However, I wanted to give Cyberpunk Edgerunners credit where credit's due. Whoever was in charge of the PR team really marketed this show as something wild and chaotic, filled with blood, sex, and violence, which was already enough for me to watch, but while Edgerunners certainly delivered on that part, it also gave us a more personal and intimate story about this group of people just trying to survive in a ruthless city. Studio Trigger and CD Projekt Red are a duo you would have never even thought about, but together they both brought out the best in each other. Trigger working on a Western IP like Cyberpunk allowed them to take a much more unique approach when it comes to anime, and it shows. They did such an amazing job at the anime that it made everybody want to play the game, yet didn't feel like one big advertisement. I still wish the show had a couple extra episodes so we could have been more invested in the characters and spend more time in the world. While the show didn't break me like it did most people, and I didn't change my profile picture to either David or Lucy, I still enjoyed my time in Night City. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is without a doubt one of the best shows that aired in 2022 and a must-watch. And it's my pick for Best Anime Original of the Year. Alright, it's time for the big one. Anime of the Year. There were so many great shows I watched and didn't watch this year, so if an amazing anime didn't appear in this video, it's probably because I didn't watch it due to it being a sequel of a show I haven't watched already, because it slipped under my radar, or just because I didn't have enough time to. But before we go into my top 5 anime of the year, I want to give a couple honorable mentions to shows that didn't make the cut. I was looking forward to Spy Family and expected it to be more of a mind-gamey type of show, like a more serious version of Love is War, but it turned out to be more like the Anya show. And while I absolutely adore Anya and would want her as my own daughter, after the first core, I stopped caring about what was really happening or going on. It was just Anya doing Anya things, Lloyd has a mission, Yor is doing something fucking stupid, and Lloyd reminds himself that this is a fake family for Operation Strix. As massive as this show was, for me personally, it won't have any long-lasting impact on me, but it was a very enjoyable show when it first aired. Speaking of Love is War though, Kaguya-sama Love is War Ultra Romantic was an anime I looked forward to the day it was announced. I even took it to myself to read all of the manga up until that point in anticipation of Ultra Romantic, and the way the show slowly turns more rom than com and just eases away with the entire Love is War gimmick elevated the series to a whole new height that I could have never imagined. Giving the time to really explore and dive deeply into the psyches of our beloved characters was the best decision the series could have made, and Ultra Romantic is just the tip of the iceberg. You have this incredible cast of characters that, despite all having prestigious statuses, are all extremely relatable at the end of the day. Each of these characters' quests for love are so emotionally captivating to watch, and the payoff at the climax of the series makes the build-up from seasons 1 and 2 so worth it. I seriously cannot wait for the movie to release in the US in early 2023. With honorable mentions being out of the way, here are my top 5 anime of 2022. Chainsaw Man has been one of the most anticipated anime ever. It was my most anticipated anime of this year, and it's just about everything I want in a shonen. Something a bit darker and grittier than the likes of something like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen, and just pure non-stop fun. I do have some qualms with how they chose to adapt certain scenes of the manga, yes, I'm gonna be that guy, but I also enjoyed what the anime added to Fujimoto's work. Take the Aki vs Katana fight for example. In the manga, Aki's cursed sword is propelled by a ghost-like finger that comes from outside the manga panel, giving it an otherworldly feeling. It's hard and nearly impossible to translate this into anime, but where the Aki vs Katana fight shines is in its cinematography as well as the weight of Aki's movements and actions. There's a sense of urgency from the moment Aki unsheaths his weapon. The overall cinematography and direction of Chainsaw Man is unlike anything I've ever seen before, making it feel more like a live action than an anime. The people over at Mappa took Tatsuki Fujimoto's artwork and really refined it to a more palatable look for an anime, but still keeps the overall feeling of Fujimoto's work. This has got to be one of the best anime produced by Mappa Studios. Chainsaw Man for me is a breath of fresh air and rekindles my hope for the future of shonen. Made in Abyss's first season along with the movie Dawn of the Deep Soul in my eyes are perfect. The series captures the feelings of longing and adventure atop a beautifully horrific setting as they dive deeper into the abyss. Their journey had me completely hooked the minute they dove downwards, and Dawn of the Deep Soul was a height I don't think could have ever been topped when approaching the next arc. While Golden City for me doesn't reach those highs from Dawn of the Deep Soul, what Golden City is an interesting solution to Made in Abyss's mistake of having already cleared 5 out of 7 confirmed layers of the Abyss. Golden City introduces a fresh new cast of characters in an alternate timeline, taking place before the events of Made in Abyss. It gives the viewer a sort of morbid curiosity, knowing what dangers lie in the Abyss and seeing how a set of naive adventurers deal with an unforgiving environment. At times, I didn't really care where our main cast was and wanted to spend more time with the new adventurers. While Golden City takes our main characters and sidelines them for a bit, I think any extra time spent within the layers of the Abyss is the correct choice to make. It isn't without its faults, however, as a certain plot point surrounding a certain character just about reverses that character's growth from a previous arc. But casting that aside, the stories told in Golden City and Faputa's character arc reinvigorated my love for Made in Abyss. There's really nothing like Made in Abyss out there in terms of anime, and it's a series that makes me feel a way that no other show has, so I am always rooting for Made in Abyss. Mob Psycho has long been an all-time favorite of mine and is one of the few shows that got me back into anime in the first place. Studio Bones have really outdone themselves with Mob Psycho Season 3, delivering some of the most stunning pieces of animation in their entire catalog. Mob Psycho Season 3 brings back our beloved cast of characters and eases us back into the world of Mob. The show surprisingly gives some side characters extra screen time that was unexpected, but more than welcome. Season 3 also gives the last big character of the series, Dimple, a much needed character arc, delivering one of the best episodes that have aired in this year. While Season 3 may not have the big finality as the second season had, it still shines in being a little more slowly paced and allowing us to spend a little extra time in this world before we have to say goodbye. Mob Psycho is a more personal story, and was never really a big blockbuster shonen battle series. Instead, it's a story of Mob on his journey to be the best person he can be. The finale of Mob Psycho 100 had me in tears. An OP Injured song from Season 1 at the finale is always hype, and while some may view the last parts of Mob Psycho as anticlimactic, I think the way it ended was the best send-off for Mob Psycho 100. This is a series I will always have in my heart forever. There is so much character and heart to this story that not many other shonen anime really have. While I'm sad to see Mob Psycho go, I'm happy that I was there for the end of it. Bocchi the Rock came out of absolutely nowhere and took the anime scene by storm. It's a new entry to the CGDCT genre, or cute girls doing cute things, that's easy to get into as a grown-ass man myself. It's one of the few anime to make me audibly laugh out loud and even cringe at certain moments. Bocchi is the most unstable, batshit insane, and lovable character I've ever seen. You never know when she's about to snap over things like the anxiety of getting your first job, or when she's about to whip out her guitar and sing about her problems. Things like not wanting to show up too early to a place so you decide to wait a few minutes, or not knowing how to engage in a conversation with someone you don't really know are all moments I know all too well. Bocchi makes you feel like an extroverted god in comparison to her, yet is also someone you can painfully relate with. I took a bit of time to sort of skim through the pages of the manga, and my god, did Cloverworks do an exceptional job at adapting this manga. The art in the manga looks a little bit too moe, with not much thought for paneling or dynamic angles as it's a 4-panel manga, and the adaptation breathes so much life into these panels. The voice acting is absolutely incredible, composed of mostly new talent, and the visuals themselves are so refined, for lack of better words. The animation itself is absolutely incredible, as stated in the Best Animation Award, with so much thought put into subtle yet character-defining movement. The way Nijika runs off when she says goodbye, or moments like the manager brushing off the fact that she really does care about her sister's band with the throw of a hand. All of the character movements, expressions, and voice acting all culminate to bring these still overly cutesy drawings to life, making them feel more human even if they do fit within a certain anime archetype. I've long been a fan of Cloverworks besides their dodgy reputation on a few certain series, but their visual quality has always been top tier. Bocchi the Rock has got to be this year's greatest adaptation. Any tuber hiding in public made the odd comparison of Bocchi the Rock to Cartoon Network's Chowder series, and honestly, there's not really a better way to describe it. The sheer amount of creativity when diving into different mediums and overall production quality poured into Bocchi the Rock is its magnum opus on top of everything it has to offer. And just think about all of the anime that was hyped up for October 2022. Blue Lock, Mob Psycho, Bleach, Chainsaw Man, but Bocchi the Rock just showed up and swept the scene. It's one of my new favorite shows ever made, and after 2022, I seriously need to rethink my favorite shows of all time. Bocchi the Rock takes my spot for #1 new anime of the year. Alright, that's the end of the award show. What did you think? Let me know in the comment section.
全てのユミルの民に継ぐ
What the fuck? The award for Anime of the Year goes to Attack on Titan, the final season part 2. Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 2 delivered on every single episode. One of the craziest plot twists ever, insane payoff with a near decade of build-up, the return of old characters, conclusions to character arcs, and even an OG human versus Titan scene. There's so much going on this season. MAPPA really stepped up to the plate and did not miss a single beat adapting this season, even going as far as to giving us some hand-drawn Titans. Attack on Titan is a show that deserves all the hype it gets and lives up to its reputation. Season 4 Part 2 absolutely cements Attack on Titan as close to a modern masterpiece as we got. So many moments have me saying, holy shit, this is actually happening. With so many building blocks getting torn down, it seems like every episode had some sort of plot revelation or major turning point. Yet at the same time, they had an episode like Night of the End, where characters can just sit down at a campfire and just talk for 20 minutes and still be one of the best episodes in the season. There's really not much I can say about this season without approaching spoilers when the series is coming to a close. It's more Attack on Titan, yet it's nothing we could have ever imagined it would have been back in 2013. I was in middle school in 2013, and now I'm old enough to drink alcohol. Attack on Titan has always been a great show, yet has always consistently gotten better. I thought long and hard about my rankings for this year, and a part of me thought that putting Attack on Titan as my number 1 was a bit of a cop-out, but I think Final Season Part 2 wholeheartedly deserves the spot for Anime of the Year.